Marcus just got the offer letter. $185,000 a year, up from $140. He reads it twice in the parking lot before he even tells his wife. 2 floors up in the same building, Priya makes $97,000. She's made roughly the same salary for 6 years. Ask either of them who's winning and the answer feels obvious. Except 18 months from now, Marcus will have less money in the bank than he does today, and Priya will have quietly crossed a number that took her from anxious to unbothered. Same company, same city, same cost of living, and the guy with the bigger raise is the one sliding backward. My name is Horizon, and this is the trap nobody warns you about when the offer letter shows up, because everyone assumes the danger zone is being poor. It isn't. The real danger zone, the one that swallows the most people, sits right in the middle, comfortable enough to stop being afraid, not rich enough to actually be safe. Stick around, because I'm going to show you the exact moment Marcus's raise turns into a trap, and the specific reason a Federal Reserve survey found that a huge share of six-figure households couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency without borrowing. Hold that thought. Let's start with the number that should bother you. A recent Lending Club survey found that a majority of people earning over $100,000 a year describe themselves as living paycheck to paycheck, not struggling to eat, not behind on rent, paycheck to paycheck on 6 figures. That phrase used to mean something specific: no cushion, no slack, one bad week from disaster. Now it describes households with 2 cars, a mortgage, and a vacation photo from last spring. The math hasn't changed. The definition of normal has. Here's the part that actually explains it, and it has a name: the temptation bundle. Every time your income rises, a matching set of expenses rises with it, not because you need them, but because they arrive dressed as things a person at your level simply has. The bigger apartment isn't a luxury anymore, it's appropriate. The nicer car isn't a splurge, it's what you drive now. Nothing on the list feels indulgent in isolation. That's the trick. Lifestyle creep never shows up as one big reckless purchase. It shows up as 12 reasonable ones, each one quietly assuming the last raise was permanent and the next one is coming. Marcus is a case study in exactly this. The week his new salary hits, nothing dramatic happens. He doesn't buy a boat. He upgrades the apartment by 1 bedroom because a growing income deserves a growing space. He leases a car that matches the new title on his badge because showing up to client meetings in the old one felt wrong. Each decision alone is defensible. Stacked together, they've absorbed the entire $45,000 raise before it ever touched a savings account. Marcus didn't get richer. He got a more expensive version of exactly as broke as before. Priya, 3 desks over, got a much smaller raise 2 years ago and did something almost embarrassing in its simplicity. Nothing. She kept the same apartment. She kept the same 10-year-old sedan. The extra money went straight into an index fund on autopilot before she ever saw it hit her checking account. It's not that Priya is more disciplined as a person. It's that she never let the money become visible long enough to feel spendable. That single habit, invisible money versus visible money, is the entire gap between these 2 salaries. Now, the mechanism behind this has a name from psychology, and it's called hedonic adaptation, and it is savage in how efficiently it works. You get the bump in pay, you feel a spike of relief and pride, and within about 6 to 8 weeks your brain quietly resets that new lifestyle as the baseline. The bigger apartment stops feeling exciting and starts feeling standard. The nicer car becomes just the car. And because the baseline moved, the old feeling of comfort is gone, replaced by a new, more expensive version of exactly the same low-grade anxiety you had before the raise. You didn't buy happiness. You bought a slightly nicer treadmill and kept running at the same speed. Here's where it turns from uncomfortable into genuinely dangerous, because the middle income bracket has a specific structural trap the very poor and the genuinely wealthy don't share. If you're low income, you often qualify for assistance, discounts, and safety nets designed to catch you. If you're wealthy, your fixed costs are a rounding error against your assets. But the upper middle bracket, the $120,000 to $250,000 households, get none of that support and absolutely none of that cushion. You earn too much to qualify for help and too little relative to your lifestyle to actually be secure. Economists sometimes call this the squeezed middle, and the squeeze isn't about income at all. It's about the fact that your fixed costs were built to match your income exactly, which means there is no slack anywhere in the structure. One job loss, one medical bill, one bad year, and there's no shock absorber, because you spent the shock absorber on a bigger lease. Let's put real numbers on Marcus, because the abstraction is where people stop paying attention, and the arithmetic is where it actually lands. Before the raise, Marcus brought home roughly $8,200 a month after tax. After the raise, that number becomes about $10,700. That's an extra $2,500 a month, every month, for the rest of his working life if he simply left it alone. Instead, the new apartment costs $650 more than the old one. The new car payment is $580 higher than his old one. The upgraded gym, the nicer lunches, the small subscription creep nobody tracks, that adds another roughly $700 a month combined. Add it up, and Marcus is spending an extra $1,930 of his $2,500 raise before he's even noticed it happening. He kept about 23% of the raise. Everything else went to becoming a slightly more expensive version of himself. Now watch what the other 77% would have done if he'd simply left it in an index fund instead. That leftover $1,930 a month, invested at a normal long-term market return, becomes roughly $1.1 million after 25 years. One raise, redirected instead of absorbed, is the difference between Marcus working until he's 68 out of necessity and Marcus having an actual choice at 55. He'll never see that number, not because the money didn't exist, but because it got spent on 12 reasonable decisions that each felt too small to matter. This is the point where I have to bring up the study that should be printed on every offer letter in America. Researchers studying household finances found something almost darkly funny. The single best predictor of whether a raise improves your long-term financial position isn't the size of the raise. It's whether your spending increased in the same calendar year you received it. Households that let even 6 months pass before adjusting their lifestyle kept dramatically more of every raise than households that upgraded immediately. The lag itself is the entire strategy. Wait, and your brain never gets the chance to redefine normal. Move instantly, and the raise evaporates before you've had time to decide what to do with it. So here's the uncomfortable synthesis. Being broke on a low income is a resource problem. Being broke on a high income is a timing problem, and it's one almost nobody warns you about, because the culture around raises is entirely about celebration and never about strategy. Nobody sends you a card that says congratulations on the promotion. Now please don't touch any of it for 6 months. But that card, if it existed, would be the single most valuable piece of financial advice a person could receive in their 20s or 30s. Now I can already hear the objection because I get some version of it every time. Horizon, I worked hard for this raise. I'm allowed to enjoy it. What's the point of earning more if I live exactly the same as before? And that's fair, genuinely. Nobody's suggesting you live like it's still your old salary forever, out of some grim discipline cult. The actual answer is simpler and far less punishing than that. Split the raise before you feel it. Take half, put it immediately into an account you don't see day to day, and let yourself enjoy the other half without guilt. You get the dinner out, the slightly nicer apartment if you want it, the vacation. You just don't get all 12 of the reasonable upgrades stacked on top of each other, because that's not enjoying the raise, that's just quietly spending it into oblivion, one Uber Eats order at a time. Here's the part of this that really flips the story, though, because I'd be lying if I made this sound like a simple discipline problem you can fix with a spreadsheet. The system is actually built to encourage this. Marketing at every income bracket above median is engineered specifically to redefine what reasonable looks like the moment you cross into a new tax bracket. The moment your income crosses 6 figures, you start getting different ads, different real estate listings, different car brochures, all of them whispering the same message. People like you don't drive that anymore, don't live there anymore, don't eat that anymore. Nobody sits you down and tells you lifestyle creep is optional. Every signal around you is built to make it feel mandatory. And this is where it gets genuinely dark, because the same squeeze that catches Marcus catches an even larger group with far less warning. Dual-income households where both raises hit at once. When two people in the same house both get promoted in the same year, the temptation bundle doesn't just add, it multiplies. Because now there's a second income silently underwriting the belief that the household can absorb any purchase. Financial counselors have a specific term for the households that come to them years later completely blindsided. Doctors, dual-income professionals, engineers pulling combined incomes well past $300,000 who somehow have less in savings than a single teacher making $60,000 alone. It's not a mystery once you see the pattern. Two incomes just means two lifestyles creeping upward at the same time, each one quietly assuming the other will cover any gap. So let's go back to Priya, 3 desks over, because her version of this story is genuinely boring, and that's the entire point. She never made a dramatic sacrifice. She never lived like a monk. She simply automated the gap between her old lifestyle and her new income the day the raise landed, before she ever had the chance to feel it as spendable. A few years from now, Marcus will get another raise, and the same 12 reasonable decisions will happen again, because the pattern never announced itself as a pattern. It just felt like normal life catching up to normal income. Priya will get a smaller raise on paper and quietly become the person in that office who could walk away from the job entirely if she wanted to, not because she earned more, but because she let less of what she earned become visible. That's the whole trap, and it's why the title of this video isn't ironic. The middle-class trap isn't about being underpaid. It's about being paid enough to stop feeling urgency, without ever being paid enough to actually be safe. And the gap between those two feelings is exactly where an entire income bracket quietly loses decades of freedom, one reasonable upgrade at a time. If you want the actual mechanics of this, how to structure the split the moment a raise lands, which accounts to automate it into, and the order that actually works, that's precisely what we walk through inside our school community. Real numbers, real timelines, no guesswork. The link's in the description if you want in. No pressure, this whole video was the demo. So here's what I actually want you to take from this. The next time a number on an offer letter makes your chest tighten with excitement, that feeling is exactly the moment to move fast, not on spending, but on splitting it before your brain ever gets the chance to call the new version of your life normal. Marcus will get another raise next year. So will you, probably. The only question that decides whether it changes your life, or just changes your rent, is whether you let yourself feel it before you've decided where it goes. I'm Nick, I'll see you in the next one.